You are watching Travel World Online.
Thank you, Madhu, and I'm honored. Thank you, Grishi. Thank you, Amrishi, for having us on this panel, etc. Just to begin, that the UNWTO, which is the World Tourism Barometer, has predicted that the loss in economic revenue as a result of tourism will be 1.2 trillion. 100 million plus jobs will be lost. The drop in international travel will be anything between 60 to 80%, depending on when we can reshape the recovery curve. Closer home, it's expected that India would lose 10 lakh crores in tourism activity, in economic activity. Job losses, we employ 55 million people. We could lose up to 38 million people. The restaurant industry employs 7.2 million people. They could lose 2 million people, and 1 out of 4 may not open. Even when Nicholas Taleb developed the theory of the black swan, I don't think he had imagined ever that there would be such a crisis. A turning point in history where rules will be rewritten as mindsets change and society resets its priorities. Incredible minds, it is said, will find a silver lining in the darkest cloud. With many incredible minds present here and 3 distinguished minds right here with me on the panel, we're going to look at the opportunity to create in MICE what I call the day after. A reset to new values, an opportunity not to reset where we want to be, where we were, but where we want to be. Allow me to introduce this distinguished panel. Mr. Suman Billa, educated at Madras Christian College, Jawaharlal Nehru University, and the London School of Economics. Mr. Billa belongs to the 1996 batch of IAS from the Kerala cadre. He is currently on an assignment to the UNWTO as Director Technical Cooperation and Silk Road Development. Prior to this assignment, he was Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism in India for 5 years, with 2 prior stints in the tourism sector as Director of Kerala Tourism. Among other positions he has held are Commissioner Commercial Taxes, Secretary Food Civil Supplies, District Collector Palghar in the state of Kerala, and Private Secretary to the Minister of State in Ministries of External Affairs and Defence, Government of India. Welcome, Suman. I also have with me Mr. Ashwin Gunasekaran. He is the Asia Pacific Chapter, International Congress and Convention Association, known as ICCA, Chief Executive Officer, Penang Convention and Exhibition Bureau. Ashwin is the Chief Executive Officer of Penang Convention and Exhibition Bureau, the first state convention bureau in northern Malaysia, set to develop and grow its business event industry. Prior to joining PCEB, he was Assistant Vice President of Group Sales and Marketing of Destination Resorts and Hotel. A born and bred Penangite, Ashwin worked for the Penang Tourism Action Council upon attaining his master's degree in international tourism from IMI University, Switzerland. Welcome, Ashwin. We also have on our panel today Mr. Puneet Chhatwal. He's the Managing Director of IHCL. He joined IHCL in November 2017. He's a professional with over 3 decades of leadership experience at highly acclaimed hotel groups in Europe and North America. Prior to this, Mr. Chhatwal was the CEO and member of the executive board of Steigenberger Deutsche Hospitality. He was also the Chief Development Officer of the Residor Hotel Group, Carlson Hotels Worldwide. Mr. Chhatwal is a graduate of both University and Institute of Hotel Management, Delhi. He has completed his MBA in hospitality from ESSEC Paris and Advanced Management Program from INSEAD. Mr. Chhatwal has won many awards, including prestigious Carlson Fellowship, and was rated as one of Europe's 20 extraordinary minds in sales and marketing in the European Awards 2014. But before I get to the panel, I just thought I'd tell you about the size of the MICE market for those of you who may not be aware. Globally in 2017, it was estimated that the MICE market was 800 billion. The size of the Indian market has been estimated to 36,000 crore. The contribution to global MICE, although is only 0.96%, expected to go up to nearly 1.2%, which is $11 billion in the next 4 to 5 years. For the knowledge of everybody, 40% of all inbound travel is MICE and 20% of all outbound travel is MICE. Without further ado, can I begin to ask my questions? I begin by asking Suman. Suman, good afternoon and great to have you on this panel. Sumant, you have led the MICE through the ICPB in India. Now that you have a global view, we understand that travel is going to be redistributed. There are going to be new norms in travel. What changes do you foresee in strategies deployed by destinations to attract MICE?
And good afternoon. I think this year we have seen a lot of postponements, cancellations, and rapid switches to virtual events, which has happened in the MICE segment. One of the things that we are facing now is stiff competition from digital events. Because earlier, even though the potential was always there, the true potential of digital events was never discovered because we were used to doing business on a face-to-face manner. But now people are forced to go digital, and I think that the level of efficiency that they are bringing and the cost savings they are bringing is substantive. We just did a commission meeting for Africa with all the tourism ministers digitally, and I think the meeting went very well. But what is missing is that there are no opportunities for networking and there are no opportunities for play. And I think that is critical, and that is the reason why people will come back to physical MICE events. But we should not lose sight of the fact that we will lose a substantial part of the market share to digital, where it can be done efficiently sitting in your office. I think that trend is going to stay, and it's probably not going to go away quickly. Second is one trend which is extraneous to the MICE industry, but it will have a big bearing on how we do this business is going to be. There are three factors which will be critical on how people will choose a MICE destination. The first is what is the context in the stage of in the context of COVID. What is the stage of the infection? What is the recovery rate, and where are they now? Are you peaking or are you coming down? So some of those things become critical. Second is people are going to look at what are the risk factors associated with the event. Both for the delegates as well as for the host community, you need to make that assessment to see what the risks would be. And the third is the destination's ability or capacity for prevention and control in case should something happen. It will be very critical in how people will choose destinations. So the MICE industry can be all strong. We can put together our plans, but we also need to have significant support by the wider health system. Second is, I think the way going forward is going to be mostly traditional mid-sized domestic events will lead the way. And I think it will be some time before we see international events coming through. And the most important thing in this is going to be protocols, because unless we have protocols which are very robust, which develop that consumer confidence in people to say that it is safe to go. It is not enough to just have protocols, but it is also important to make sure that the world views us as following those protocols the way they are meant to be. And for the MICE segment in particular, we think that at the UNWTO, there are some things that we need to look at more closely. One is, I think we need to start using the outdoors more aggressively, because indoors have a greater risk of contagion, and outdoors should be used especially for banqueting and for the rest of those things. Second is we will need to look at our convention centers and venues and see as to how we can downsize capacity in line with social distancing. Third is we need to see as to how we can regulate the flow. Maybe we can take the help of technology, but not all delegates need to come and go at the same time. Maybe we should reduce the number of people coming in and going. Fourth, I think we need to risk profile participants, because if there are certain groups which are at higher risk, I think it makes a lot of sense to be well prepared for them and keep those things in place. And fifth, I think, and very important, is what is the plan that we will have in case some participants have contract COVID or something. What are the protocol that we are going to do? Because earlier this year when ITB got cancelled, one of the big elements that was going was, if some people come and they are COVID positive there, would Germany quarantine them, or how would quarantine happen in their home countries? And what is the protocol? Does it mean that all the 5,000 people you'll have to do contact tracing for those who have come to the conference? So these are some issues which are naughty, which we need to do. So to my mind, I think the situation for MICE is going to be a little difficult, because I think MICE the leisure tourism and business travel will come on first, but probably the group events will be a little bit later in coming up, but it also calls for us to strategize collectively. I think at destination level, the old model of working, the PCO will go find a conference and then he will come and chase up hoteliers and everybody else. I think we should get out of that game, because whatever business opportunities come, they are going to be keenly fought for. So I think it's very important that destinations come together. And it's not just the PCO, the hotels, the convention centers, down to the florist. All stakeholders should come together and put together a composite bid and say, how are we going to make use of these opportunities that are going to come? And if you're able to put together, I think there is a great case to go to the state government and center and say, these are our efforts, and how would you match us, or how would you support us to go and get them? Because I think the key really is to get a few conferences into India and make sure that we do them well, whether it is domestic or whether it is international. If we do them well, that itself is proof that we can handle, and I think the market will come back much faster than we think that it would.
Sumant, you mentioned that the choice of a destination will depend on the degree of COVID that they've had, or whatever the intensity. Now, every possible number that you look at can be questioned in terms of, some say denominator of testing, some say size of population, some say land mass, etc. Does the United Nations or WTO or WHO have a single number that they would go by? Is there any such single number which could become our barometer of extent of COVID?
The WHO keeps the record of how countries are progressing, the number of new cases, number of deaths, etc. So I think it's not such a complicated thing to follow, because if the number of new cases are going to be high, and if the number of deaths are also correspondingly high, then we can assume that it is at a reasonable amount of peak. But for countries in Europe which had the first wave of infection, like Italy and Spain, who are now opening up their borders for tourism, you can see that the numbers have dropped. And after their phase 1 and phase 2 of opening up, they're still not jumping beyond the margin. So that's a reasonably stable situation under which we can start.
Do you, while I fully understand that the vaccine could be some time away, I think the jury is still out. Anything between 12 to 24 months is before the vaccine. I believe there are many viruses where vaccine has never been found till today, etc. So there's no guarantee. Therefore, the only way to move forward is to coexist and find ways how you can coexist with that. Do you think that in terms of a relief, the rapid action kit could help us out as an industry? That if we were able to rapidly test people and move forward, do you think there is any future in that? Do you think that, are we close to arriving at that? Anything from the international side, that any light that you can throw on this?
So of course, if there is a vaccine or if there is a definitive medicine, that's going to be the silver bullet, and we will go back to normal starting tomorrow. But that is still some time away. There is a lot of progress that we see in research, but neither the WHO nor anybody else at this stage is able to definitively say when or how that is going to come. The rapid testing kits is something that some countries are already following. Maldives is working up a protocol because they want to open up. So they are asking for either an antibody certificate. The person should carry an antibody certificate, which is 2 weeks old. Or some countries are now asking for rapid tests. In fact, the state of Kerala is now asking for rapid testing for people who are coming back on Vande Bharat flights as well. The only problem with the rapid testing kit is that the reliability of that has not been very robust. But I think we might be in a position where we will be able to do, and I think that will be a good way for us to move forward. But of course, we need to also keep in mind that anybody going for any event will have to necessarily do the blood test, and that itself will be a little bit of a wet blanket for some of them.
2 points that you could suggest on the roadmap for recovery would you suggest to ICPB? 2 most important points that come at top of your mind.
One of the things that ICPB has been working diligently over the past many years is to create state chapters, because whatever else we may talk, India as an entity cannot be a bidding entity because it's too large. There are too many places. So I think it's very important for us to have regional chapters or destination level chapters, like the Hyderabad has an agency which has all the stakeholders, and then they go out. I think we need to speed up that process. Like when I said, if it is Cochin or Delhi, I think the stakeholders need to come together. The hoteliers, the PCOs, the tour operators, the entire system needs, the ecosystem needs to come together and see as to what our game plan is going to be. Make a list of things that we need to go and attract, and make a pitch all out. So I think, to my mind, at this point of time, we are still, our bid process is still not at the same level as several countries do abroad. And it is important to have the entire ecosystem in place, because several of them also leverage on the price. What does the organizer gain? But you will recover some of that through delegate pricing. So these are some things that can only come when all the stakeholders come together. So I think first and foremost, because of the situation that we are in, and because any opportunity that's going to come up is going to be keenly fought for, I think we need to have this destination level, places in place. Second, I think the convention industry should also go to the government strongly and, and make a case, because if we get 5 headline events to India, I think we will be out of the woods, because we just need to restore confidence and say that we are capable of doing it, and we can, sort of do it well. And I think governments should not shy away, because, the potential of MICE is well known, and it is not a blanket support which they are going to give. It's a specific event-based support. And I think we can certainly get the state governments and the center on board on this.
That's an important point, that at any cost, if we can get the first 5, it will sort of give confidence to people. And if we are able to carry out those success, that's a great point. Before I move on to Ashwin, just one critical policy change that you would like to suggest to the Ministry of Tourism.
I think we need,
as far as MICE is concerned.
This is an idea that I have already floated, and we went some distance with it. I think we need to create a corpus to support the MICE bids, because this is something that that is a fairly well-known thing all across the world. I think we need to have a corpus, and we should say that this is the limit, but we will support to some extent to sweeten the deal for our PCOs to make it easier.
Thanks, Suman. That was most informative. I'll move on to Ashwin. Ashwin, I fully understand, and Suman used this word. There's really no silver bullet to this crisis, etc. But we'd like to know from you, and just as from Sumant, we got an international perspective. From you, maybe we'd like a regional perspective of what they are doing. I understand that Malaysia has come out with a new policy which takes into account all the new trends and fears of people, of the fear of distance and so on and so forth. Would you like to throw some light on this for the benefit of the viewers?
Thank you, Nakul. Good evening, everyone. So, as we know, Asia Pacific itself approximately contributes 2.9 billion towards the world GDP, and this is tourism alone. And we have been seeing a growth of approximately 5%, 4 to 5% over 5 consecutive years. And it has been a tremendous impact for our industry itself. And rightfully, as mentioned earlier, the number of job losses has been on an increase. So it is not only the tourism industry, but globally every other sectors that we are looking at. But one key factor is that definitely tourism industry would be one of the last industries to recover from this pandemic. Now, having said that, everyone has got different strategy, different approaches in handling this particular pandemic. And if we're speaking of Asia Pacific region, I think what commonly is being done from my observation would be collaboration. Now, there has been major collaboration processes that has been done amongst neighboring countries. And one interesting pointer that I would like to make is also there has been collaboration processes amongst bureaus, and this was a question that was thrown to me much earlier. So as a bureau and a bureau, we don't see each other as competitors anymore. We are very much a complementing partner. So this has been something new, and people have actually seen how much of power such collaboration and complementing processes has brought about. So I wouldn't say that this COVID has been entirely negative towards everyone, but we have been finding new processes, new ideas, innovations in order to upkeep the trend. So that's happening. And within Malaysia, not only Malaysia, but also amongst the Asia Pacific region, everyone has been creating guidelines or SOPs in certain cases. And we are practicing the new normal or the next normal. And if we look at the entire programming, it is at the end of the day the same. So the question would be then, what really differs, and are we looking at how much would this impact the industry overall? And one of the key factors that I would like to highlight would be the cost factors. Now, it varies from both sides. On certain perspective, the cost would be reduced. Now, the cost would be reduced because you do not have actual traveling to do. So there's always a hybrid meeting or completely an e-meeting. So that's technology. However, when eventually we are moving away from this crisis, then you have a mix of both hybrid or even actual conferences happening where you will see income actualization. Now, when this happens, then your cost would definitely increase because you are practicing new normal. So your coaches of 40% will not happen. So you'll probably have 20% to a coach, and you may double up. Meeting spaces is halved. For Malaysia, it's by 50%. So you would require more spaces. The good thing is that there would be an increase in manpower to put all this together for meetings. So again, we speak of job losses. At this point of time, there also could be an increase or a demand for jobs as well in this industry. So there's a good mix of both that's happening, but we are very much at the early stage to conclude which end we would look at. As you rightfully said, we are definitely far away from the vaccine itself, and we are looking at many other measures that would fit in.
So I thank you. From what I hear you saying, and I quite like that, and I read somewhere that when I is replaced by we, which is WE, even illness becomes wellness, right? And I think a great takeaway from here is we need to work collectively. We are viral, not rivaled right now, right? And it's only collectively that if we work together, will we move forward. How can ICCA help its members revive, Ashwin? Any inputs that you could give our members on that?
So ICA is an association. So as far as the members are concerned, we have been passing this similar messages. And just to give example, we've got friends from New Zealand, basically the New Zealand Council that has been working very closely with the Australian partners. Similarly, Singapore has started such collaboration as well. We're looking at Macau with low population, which has also started a collaboration method. And similarly, with Japan as well. And Penang on that matter has also started collaboration with other bureaus. And ICA acts as a platform to support ideas. We've been organizing webinars, and there have been a lot of interest. Thailand, for example, has started a webinar partnership with ICA, and this is again open to all partners. So everybody has been taking turns, sharing ideas, sharing initiative, even to an extent of sharing strategy. So that's how the association has been moving forward and progressing in these times.
My last question to you, learning from the Penang Convention Bureau, where you've been involved a lot, or some of you've got a huge region, any 3 steps that you believe that we should take in India that can be a game changer?
Definitely. Firstly, when we look at this entire crisis that we are going through, it's far beyond a tourism crisis. It is even towards a financial as well as political crisis. So these are the measures that we have to look at, because there is a fair balance of interest from both parties. So that's very important. Secondly, what we have strongly done is to always keep partners very closely to us. So at this point of time, ideas from partners and supporting partners in any model that's possible would be necessary. And for an example, what we have done is we have induced an enhanced privilege Penang program. So we are providing a support model for PCOs, for event organizers, or even hotels for that matter, for a number as low as 20 persons onwards. So such support model comes in. And the other key indicator would be branding. We are very strong believers that branding should never stop at this point of time, because confidence needs to be always there. So destination confidence first, and this can only be imaged through the branding exercise, which we strongly believe. So these are a few pointers that I would really like to share. And if you need any other further ideas and collaboration processes, we are more than happy to share. And
Thanks, Ashwin. Most useful again. And you're talking about destination confidence, and I'm sure that governments can play a role in it. We've seen that the Singapore government has sort of started a certification process. We've seen WTTC has started a certification process to give assurance. I understand, and I that day heard the DG Tourism in India also saying that we're looking at some form of a process sort of to give reassurance, and that's the point that Sumant also made, that it's all about reassurance, and we'll come back to that a little later. My dear friend Puneet, and we in the hotel industry, and you represent the Hotel Association of India. I forgot to mention that you're the president of the Hotel Association of India. So let's take a view of what's happening in India. The rise of distance, the fear of infection has all affected a very major part of the Indian revenue model of hotels. The big fat Indian wedding has gone and a diet. Buffets have perhaps seen their last supper. Space ratios will have to be redefined. I understand that earlier the International Building Code said 15 feet and 5 feet, and now WHO, without making a distinction on a vertical buffet or a sit down, says that it's 27 feet. We are today in a situation where people want hands-free everything, no touch solution. And it is obvious that even going in what I say, the AC era, the in-quarantine traits will become new habits in the age. In this age of sanitized clutter, clutter-free banquets, how should we hotels adapt? We obviously need to create new spaces. We need to create new experiences. What is your advice to hotels from a conference, convention, banquet point of view to take this forward?
Thank you, Nakul. I think as the other colleagues have mentioned, I think this is maybe the most difficult time for the industry, especially the tourism, and it will maybe remain impacted, as Ashwin said, for the longest period of time. However, and having said that, Nakul, in your opening remarks, you mentioned the size of the MICE alone is 800 billion. India does not even have 1% of it. So we have some way to go, even if it drops in the short term to 500, 600 billion, or even half of it. I think important for India would be to gain that market share. So firstly, I would go with what Suman said, to create that confidence, to have those protocols in place, to work with wellness versus illness, with the we and collectively, to get the first top 3 conventions, international conventions into India, do a very good job, whether we do it with the help of our international partners or through ICA or through the industry, and then rebuild the confidence that is needed and do them so well. And I think we have always risen to the occasion, whenever we have had historical events in the country, like a NAM or a CHOGM or a Asian Games. I think India did surprisingly well versus what anybody thought it was capable of doing. So I think we can do some big international events, do it well, and get the confidence back, not just for India, but for the region, that it is safe, and it is good to do business the way it was done before. That's the first thing. The second thing is every crisis is an opportunity. And I think from a hotel association point of view, that's the second point I want to say. We have been, and you have been as the former president of Hotel Association and as chairman of Faith, lobbying for that our sector should be declared as an industry at the state level, get the infrastructure status at the center level, get it added in the in the constitution chapters, and all that is missing. I think these are things, and the timing could not have been better than ever before to do it, because this cost nothing. And why is this so important? This is important because it's a very capital intensive industry and also a labor intensive industry. So obviously your cost of capital will go down because you get the infrastructure status. Your cost of operation will go down because you get the industry status. Suddenly, the affordability of building large convention centers attached to the hotels is more affordable than it was a year or 2 years ago. I think this is inevitable. This will happen. And I'm sure Mr. Billa, in his recommendations to the ministry before moving to Madrid, has done the needful for us, and we will all benefit from it. I think he didn't say it expresses verbis, but I think that's what he kind of alluded to. Last not least, I think the hotel industry definitely has suffered. It is time we get some kind of convergence from different states and the center to one direction, and so that we know when it is opening and what we all need to do, that we know. We have all the WHO norms, we have the Ministry of Health norms, we have all possible things, whether it is a 27 feet distance or the buffets having served their last supper, to quote and unquote you, Nakul. I think all that will be taken care of. I think most important is when we know, where we were versus where we want to be. As you said in your definition of reset, where we want to be is not known. Where we were, we all have a very good memory of it. And where we are stuck now, I think we all have the suffering of that too. But let's hope, we have entered the last 2 weeks or the last fortnight of this lockdown, and as of 1st of July, the industry starts crawling and then starts walking in September, October, before it starts running again as of January, the way it was and the way we were used to.
Thanks, Puneet. Puneet, I heard and I hear it loud and clear, and I think that one very important outcome of what we've been discussing this afternoon, started by Suman, echoed by Ashwin, echoed by you, etc., is that the sort of confidence that we've got to give, right? That it is, we must get those first 4 or 5 banquets, get those 4 or 5 conventions, make a success of those, etc., at any cost. But to get those, we have to give assurances. Obviously, it's very, very obvious today that trust is the new currency. It's rightly said that we in the hotel industry, you and I have grown up in saying moments of truth, they've now become moments of trust. I was just talking to the housekeepers the other day, and I said, we don't have to kill only germs, we have to kill anxiety also. So there has to be something visible that we need to do. How do you think we as hoteliers could help our fellow friends in ICPB, etc., to give this confidence to them that when they bring forward such a thing, we would take it forward with the trust that they have put into us? What should we do as hoteliers? What would be your advice to hoteliers?
If you allow me on a lighter note, Nakul, because you used a very important word. Popularly we are known as Taj Group. And one of the 3 core values of Taj is trust for the T and the awareness and joy. So trust is not something that is new. We have always done business as our group or the group you represent or some others in India based on trust. I think the trust came first, the relationship came second. We were always all good at hospitality. So I think we are capable of doing that. And as I said earlier, I think nobody has done a better job at doing state banquets for the Queen or hosting, all heads of states in the Vigyan Bhavan in Delhi for the non-aligned meet or the Commonwealth heads of meet. I think all these events have been very spectacular, have been very well executed. I see no reason why we would not be able to do that again. And look at what is happening in terms of
My point was, Puneet, as an industry, not as a brand, collectively as an industry, what should we do to gain this trust or to sort of display this trust?
Well, as an industry, we have given, as Hotel Association also, we have given our recommendations to both Ministry of Tourism and Ministry of Health. We have given in what we see as the new normal. We have done it both at the center level and we are doing it in various states, depending which group is strong in which state. And I think then the main question is the proof is in the pudding, and we can keep talking theory. What kind of confidence we give, we actually need to get an event done, no matter who does it, or a few events done. And if they're executed seamlessly, the rest will be history.
Okay, that's what most people seem to echo. Puneet, it was Churchill who said that we shape buildings and buildings shape us. It's obvious that designs can affect the transmission of disease. It's very, very obvious. We obviously now need to create, as a result of COVID, we need to create spaces that appeal to all five senses and not only to the sense of aesthetic. Any advice that you would like to give from a hotelier's point of view in the construction that you believe we should take care of in the construction of banquets hall or convention centers, etc., in light of what is going on and what will remain after COVID goes, as I said, that in...
Well, Churchill also said, never waste a crisis. So I think
absolutely right.
The crisis has given us the opportunity to rethink, redesign, and reimagine and reinvent all spaces, not just banquet spaces. However, as the theme is conferences and conventions, I think the more we go into sustainable way of doing business, the better it would be. The more we go into industry standards of sanitization, which is now even becoming a requirement, the better it would be. The more we go into using outdoor spaces and creating more distanced, kind of networking, the better it would be. So I think there is a host of things that we can do. And the conference thing is not from the time you arrive in a hotel. I think it's the time the idea is born. And if it is going to be that 40% international contribution that we have had because of the inbound business coming into India, that 40% from the time they board their flight or any other mode of transport to the time of they arrive at the airports or at any port of disembarkation, from the time they leave that place to arrive in the hotel and their, kind of departure, all has to work together. It all has to work brilliantly. Actually, many countries have already done that, even pre-COVID, pretty well at certain conventions, which I can take a lot of examples I gave of NAM and CHOGM. But even our hotel industry events in Dubai, if they were, one of the benchmarks, I think the job done at the Arabian Hotel Investment Conference for any of those events was absolutely par excellence. And I think the only thing was people did not maintain that kind of a distance, but there was ample space. So the space for person attending the event was significant.
Thanks, Puneet. And I think I'd just like to add to Puneet's point. I think that there will be a lot of work, a lot of architects working on how to redesign spaces, how to make sure that aesthetics and safety go side by side. What are the new types of fabrics that can be used? What is the type of new material that does not transmit any disease, etc.? Could we have less carpetings which are dirt traps, etc.? And the best example I can quote is that they say that post the Spanish flu, till the Spanish flu, all architecture was very ornamental. There were pillars, there were columns, etc. There's definite evidence to suggest that post that, lines became straighter, easier to clean, right? And it became less complicated, etc., to the earlier architecture, etc. Having done this, and I would ask each of the participants to give one last word or one last thing that he would like to say to the each of the panelists to give one last piece of advice or one last piece of sort of guidance that they would like to leave behind, or a last thought to each of the participants here, and then we would take some questions and before I come for the last word. Suman, over to you.
Thank you, Nakul. To me, I think the single most important thing that we need to do is to collaborate like never before. Because I think there is going to be pain and it's going to stay for a while. And the only way we are going to overcome this is by collaborating and helping each other. So I think for industries and especially at the MICE level, there has never been a more compelling case for collaboration than it is now. And that's the only way we're going to scale up.
Suman, do you, in the order of hierarchy, do you think MICE will come before leisure, leisure will come before MICE in terms of recovery?
No, I think leisure will come very early. I think MICE will be amongst the last, along with cruises, or at least that is the understanding that we have.
All the more reason we need to work harder to get those first 5 conferences and sort of bestow confidence in people and gain that trust, etc. Thanks, Suman. That was most useful. And Ashwin, over to you. Any one piece of advice?
Nakul, before Ashwin says something, may I say add to what Suman said?
Yes, please.
On that question, because it may not come back. I think weddings will come first, even though it's limited to 50 persons.
Okay.
Especially in India.
Okay, point taken. Right. Ashwin?
Yeah, just to add on to that as well, from what we have observed and what we have secured is the businesses that's supposed to take place this year, we have moved it to next year and the year after, and so on. So yes, we do see leisure. It will take its first pace, probably Q4. At least because you're speaking of family travels. However, we are fairly confident that meetings will equally take place as well. These are all the postponed meetings that are ready to be carried out. And what I would like to say here is, be it the pandemic or not, we are still in the people industry, and in our industry, or rather the service industry, people's touch and that service factor really counts. So I truly believe that it's just a matter of time before we recover, and we will be back to the actual normal, and we would not really stay in the new normal forever.
I salute your confidence, Ashwin, and I couldn't agree with you more that there is a there certainly will be a pent-up demand. Only when it is unleashed, one doesn't know, etc. The need to travel is more than the virus, I'm looking forward, really. I'm not really worried about this, and the need to travel is more important to me. But I like your optimism, and let's hope that comes true, and we hope that it will. Puneet, I liked a sentence that I'm going to frame my question to you, that I liked a sentence that you and I were discussing yesterday, and we were talking about this habit of all of us have got into, and the fact that today we are on a Zoom call, and we are not in the banquet hall or in a convention center, etc. Are we threatened by this to a large extent, or to what extent are we threatened by this? What are your views on this?
I think there is definitely a threat that has been underestimated, and that's what we discussed. I think the leisure travel or the business travel will come in the form of digital detours. And as Ashwin said, a lot of business events have been postponed. And that is the beauty of India, Even if you want to postpone a wedding, you cannot, because the priest has taken out an auspicious date, right? So you may reduce the number of people, but the wedding happens. So my point is, yes, we are doing all this, and this is fine. Man is a social animal, unless the definition of human being changes. At some point, you have to meet in person, and when you do meet in person, I think the social distancing is there for the first 5-10 minutes, even today, and slowly it gives away. People even take out their masks, which they should not be, but if you observe carefully, that's what happens. And I think we are in for a recovery driven by tradition, followed by leisure, and then the business travel.
Thank you. Thank you. That was most informative. And I will come back and conclude everything. But before that, I'd like to open this up to questions. We have with us, obviously, Mr. Amrish Tiwari, who's the Vice Chairman of ICPP. We have Mr. Krish Kuatra, who's the Honorary Secretary. I'd request them to lead the question part of it, and then I'll come forward and do a last 1 minute conclusion.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So first question, we have Mr. Rajiv Kohli, former Site Global President and the past Vice Chairman of ICPB. Mr. Rajiv Kohli, if you can ask the question, please.
Thanks, Amrish. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Suman, love the new mustache. And Ashwin, good to see you again. So my question is that MICE is definitely more about meetings. Incentive travel has a very high, if not a higher per passenger spend than most meetings. And often incentive travel gets left behind in all conversations, even today, and especially at the government level. And the beauty of incentive travel that it cannot be replaced by online meetings. How does the panel feel about this statement, and what can we do to get incentive travel a share of the love and policy making? And I do want to add, in the last 30 days, I have received 4 new incentive requests for February to April 2021. So the market demand out there is a lot sharper and stronger than many people anticipate.
Are these from any particular region or area, or are they just scattered all over?
Europe and South America.
Okay. Sumant, would you like to take this question?
There is no doubt that incentive travel, cannot be done over digitally. So I think that demand is going to come back. But I think confidence is the key. If we're able to do something, and if the consumers have confidence that they can come, I think that's going to happen. From the government side, I think, and I had mentioned this point when Nakul had raised it earlier, is I think we need to go to the government and say that have a corpus which can support or sweeten the deal, because it's going to be a very, very competitive marketplace. Chase up any opportunity. So the design that we had already, put, and it is under circulation with the government under the champion scheme, is that the government of India puts X amount of money, and the state also have to give. So if you're going to take incentive travel to Hyderabad, the government of Telangana and the government of India will match a certain agreed sum. That is to strengthen the deal. So I think that is something on which we had a reasonable amount of agreement on before. So that is something that is pursued.
But the champion scheme has excluded incentives. And if anyone looks at what Thailand has released this week, they've released a scheme backed by a fairly large amount of millions of dollars to boost only MICE travel, especially focused on incentives.
Rajiv, there is never a definitive one-off conversation with the government. It's a continuous process. That's something that we are doing there.
Thank you.
So we can, hi, good afternoon, everybody. We can take the next question. Next question is from somebody, his name not mentioned. He or she wants to know about the new normal way of doing meetings in the industry. How is the industry geared up for that? Mr. Anand, if you want to answer.
How is the industry? I think part of it was, I think that again, it has to be looked at in different phases. We are looking at in phase 1, of course, which is at the phase till such time that a vaccine is found. All the fears that exist will have to be done. The indoor is going to become outdoor. Absolutely. We're going to get into classroom seating. Social distancing will have to be maintained. We had, in fact, if I'm not mistaken, I had this meeting with Ashwin yesterday, and he gave me some ideas of some guidelines that Malaysia has set forward. May I request you, Ashwin, to give some of these guidelines, which very clearly lay out how conferences can be held, even during the current period.
Right. So, as for Malaysia has come up with the overall guideline, which is simply 50% of your meeting capacity, and of course you have to follow through the guidelines that every venue or every travel sector that has set. Now, if I would be more than happy to share what Penang has done, and this again goes back to what I've mentioned earlier in bringing partners together. So we have actually formed a task force, and this task force comprises of about 35 partners, and they are from 6 different sectors, namely hotels, venues, unique venues, PCO, meeting planners, logistic partners, DMCs. And we have segregated them all into their very own sectors, and we have had a total of 18 task force meeting over the past 3 weeks. And we have been sitting in every of this task force meeting in order to come out and to agree with one formal SOP or guideline that we will be implementing for all this sector. And we are looking forward for all these guidelines to be bought off by the state health department end of this month, and we'll have them released. And like what rightfully Rajiv said earlier, yes, the good thing is that we do have enquiries coming in already, be it for meetings or even incentives for that matter. So once these guidelines are in place, we will be able to support incentives, we will be able to support meetings with the guidelines. And in addition, as a bureau, we will also have to further provide support to the clients who are bringing in this business into Penang. So that's at least the module that Penang has set in line complementing with the federal SOP as a mask.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next question is from Vikrant Tolani. This is to the Puneet. Puneet, how can we move away from traditional home away from home definition taught to us at IHMs, with that missing experience at a hotel with no touch? And second, related to only you, if for the MICE, what IGCL has strategy to overcome this, especially the MICE design properties, how to maintain the social distancing? This was asked by Romy.
Yeah, I think firstly, Vikrant, I think that was the name. I think I'm still struggling to understand this whole social distancing and new normal, which is not homogeneous with the airline industry and the hotel industry. If I have to take a flight 8 hour or 9 hour to London, social distancing is not important, but if I have to sit in a meeting for 2-3 hours, the social distancing is very important. So I'm still wondering when we will find some kind of a coherent solution so we can address it as an industry in a very serious fashion. So what's the big difference when you sit in a plane versus when you sit in a hotel banquet room? So anyways, so that's one. The second is home away from home is a generic definition on how you feel when you are treated in a hotel. So I can here answer on behalf of the entire industry today that it is hosting medical workers, medical staff who are unable to go to their houses, whether in Mumbai or in Delhi or in Bangalore. The entire medical fraternity, despite the staff getting, into a very high risk of getting infected themselves, because some of these people, as you know, a lot of hospitals had to shut down. People were carrying those kind of infections. And a lot of those cases were found in hotels. They were still treated and are currently being treated as I speak, as if they are in their home and this is their part-time family. So if this can happen in the middle of the crisis, you can imagine going forward, there'll be ways and means in terms of doing that service, because just getting close to a guest is not a homey service. Homey service is, you feel at home, and it is also not very intrusive. So in the western part of the world, people who have lived there will tell you that very intrusive service is not considered homey, it's considered intrusive. I think a little bit of that balance will come, which is very healthy, which is very good going forward. Because if you take a sip of water and somebody comes and keeps pouring, you can't have a conversation. So I think some of those changes were anyways long overdue, and this crisis helps us to get. What are we
Puneet,
doing?
yeah, sorry.
Yes, Nakul, please.
Puneet, I may like to add to that in giving good service, it's not necessarily that you've got to touch the person, right? You have to touch the heart and not touch the person. As a symbolic example, I can give the namaste. The namaste has always touched the heart. It is no way inferior to the handshake, which was a physical touch. In the same way, there are many ways in which service will be redefined, but service doesn't have to physically touch the person. It must touch the heart.
Very well said, Nakul. This is the difference. I think you don't have to physically touch a person, but touch a heart. So I think that will be the new definition for the industry from home away from home. I think it's very, very well articulated. And finally, what we are doing, I think all companies are coming up with their own strategies. You will get to hear and see a lot of those as of July 1st, when the industry starts opening up. With the states that have opened up, we have come up with a few promotions which are part of social media. You can go and have a look. One of that is a 4D initiative, which is not related to MICE, but it is more about drivecations. When you you dream of going away, whether it's a family or with your colleagues, and then you sit and you drive, and then you discover a new destination and delight yourself. So I think a lot of this is being planned. I know from my colleagues within the Hotel Association of India and other fellow hoteliers, everybody's ready with the plan. The thing is, when do we start opening up and are allowed to receive the guests? So once that is there, you will see a lot of innovation and new ways of attracting MICE business to our industry.
Next, thank you, Mr. Chhatwal. Next question, Ashwin, is for you. Of course, Mr. Anand also asked it partly during his discussions. The question is one strong tip that you want to go to Indian Convention Promotion Bureau. The question by Vikrant Gulani, that India should follow, as ICBP should follow, in terms of overcoming this Corona symptom. One strong tip to ICBP.
I think what's important is the branding. Branding first, collaboration second, and to constantly engage the partners, at least in terms of education model. So that's another thing that we have been doing with the partners. We have already aligned educational webinars for partners, because at this point of time, you really need a high level of positivity. So that is something that we are more than happy to share. So if we can have that, then we'll have everyone on the same page.
And one more question, just aligning with, of course, the meeting industry, I want to put up to you. The question is that when we talk about virtual meeting, we're talking about it's just temporary phase. In the temporary phase also, how does the financials get addressed? This is a question by Rajkumar Vijayan. How do we address financials, the exhibitors' money, the sponsors' money coming in? How is that addressed in virtual meetings?
So if you're looking at virtual meetings, the most you could go on is banner sponsorship, and you could go on sessions sponsored by, again, a brand presence. So to that extent, if it has got a certain level of credible speakers on board, and you may charge the participants a certain value. But from what I foresee is, like what rightfully Puneet has mentioned earlier, it's just a matter of time before the gates open, and this virtual meetings would almost immediately change into hybrid, and hybrid wouldn't last that long either before we get into actual meetings. Or for all we know, actual meetings would have a greater extent of technological application, where you will even have possibilities of incorporating hybrid. So hybrid would just be another small option towards an actual meeting.
Thank you. One question from Mahatma Gandhi Convention Center's Rajni Nair, Dev, asking regarding the certification of health. Which would be the body that would spearhead this to be seen as safe to do the event in India? Any panelist?
I think the government is working on this. They're looking at a number of options. They're studying. The first model to study was obviously the Singapore model that gave the SC certificate, Singapore Clean certificate, etc. But again, that our again advice to the government was that such things we should sort of outsource to an agency without putting pressure on the government. Those people who want themselves certified go to that agency, pay a fee, and get it done, so the government is not involved. Could be one of the big 5 consultancy companies, one of the others. That's the best way to get it. Many years back, this is what we recommended. If you remember, when Mrs. Renuka Chaudhary was the tourism minister, we worked with her on doing something called Atithi Devo Bhava. That was a clean certificate for dhabas, restaurants, hotels, anything which is certified by the government. And the methodology that we had certified was a similar method, that at each level there will be a private person, and if I want to get certified, I'm a restaurant, I go to this agency, I pay my fee and I get myself certified, provided I qualify. So it would be outsourced, but I think there's a good opportunity. Again, WTTC has taken out their certification model. I think we have in hindsight now 3 or 4 different models, and I think that's what's important. If this is okay, Amrishji and Girishji, could we call this to a close, and can I give the concluding comments?
Right, sir. Right.
Can we take one last question? I think there's some questions that come in. And interesting questions coming from a gentleman called Mehul Khanna. If you can take it before closure, sir. The question talks about do you think that India as a country is reacting late in terms of our competition countries like Thailand and Singapore? Maybe we as Indians don't. Mr. Birla can address it, or Mr. Ashwin can address it from the outside world. You think India is reverting late to the current pandemic in terms of the branding outside India? Ashwin and Mr. Birla.
No, I think we are not late, because what response you give to the market is actually dependent upon what stage of the infection you are in. So I think for us, we are just peaking now. So we still have some time to plan, and you cannot run a campaign now when, so there has to be a return on revenue as well. So I think that is something that we need to do. And secondly, on the government, if you look at it, broadly all across, and, in the UNWTO, we do a comparative analysis of what all the governments have offered for the tourism sector. So typically, some countries have been very optimistic, and they have given furloughing, which is, you pay 80% of the salary or some percentage of salary to the person who is laid off. But all of them at the end of 2 months are under acute pressure. So now they are asking employers to come back and pay a part of it, or trying to see as to how, they can get out of it. So I think what the government can actually do also depends to a large extent on the resources that they have. And all across the world, governments are preparing the war chest to fight the health pandemic first and foremost. And support to the industry and to the economy are, as of now, what we see is that several of them are still mostly in paper. They're commitments, but they have not been, rolled out yet. So I think we need to understand that governments are in as difficult a position as the industry is. And I think we need to also, I think the key is really that God helps those who help themselves. We should go to the government and say, you should support us with these things, but we can't expect the government to pick up all the burden that we have.
Yeah, I do concur with Mr. Suman as well, because every country goes through different stages, and probably for Malaysia we started way earlier, and now we are through the lockdown process. So it's still never too late. It's an ongoing process. It's just how you improvise along the way.
Thank you.
If I may add here, the examples in the question already answer the question in themselves, because the examples of Singapore and Thailand. India has 1.3 billion people, and the safety and the security of the people was, I think, of prime importance. And the steps taken in that direction were the right steps. Second is the importance of the industry. I think for Thailand, tourism maybe ranks number 1, or if not number 1, maybe in the top 2, maybe it ranks number 2. So supporting tourism is like supporting employment, GDP completely, because and what we did here was supporting the MSMEs and the migrant workers, because that was the key. So I think most of you can't, like Mr. Birla said, and like also my other colleague, Mr. Ashwin, said is you can't just cut, copy, paste what others have done and put it in the Indian context. However, and having said that, yes, if not a financial boost, it is time that we get some kind of policy boost for this business, for the tourism business in India, and that does not cost any money. That does not cost the government anything, and it would be an opportune moment to do so.
That's it. With that, Amrish ji and
Over to you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you. I think thank you all. We've had a great 1 hour, etc. We've learned some great insights at an international level, at a regional level, at a national level. I think the conclusions are that we'd be fooling ourselves if we believe that we are not affected as an industry. MICE will be an industry that it'll take a long time for it to recover, but it's not the end of the road. Domestic will be the first one to recover, and how can we focus on it? Remember that 26 million India was outbound. What percentage of that was MICE? Nearly 40% or 20%, I believe. How can we keep that up? We need to relook at branding and how can we brand India to give sort of the confidence. We need to work in collaboration with people, with countries, amongst ourselves, etc., to share 5 ideas. The first 5 conferences are going to matter a lot, and how can we get them in and working with the state government at any cost, irrespective of what it costs us to get these, to give confidence and create that trust. But before we do that, we must have the right protocols in place so that we make sure that this is a one chance of a lifetime that we will get and we don't ruin that. With that, there are some silver linings, and I was just looking at what's happening globally, and tourism the worst seems to be over. China has no surprises as the biggest sign. The Shanghai Disneyland has just opened, given hope that a hyper-crowded setting like a theme park is possible to operate in these times. Hong Kong restaurants, I don't know whether you saw, there was a video of Hong Kong and Paris restaurants circulating, were busy again. Travel bubbles have emerged in Australia, New Zealand, and more likely in China, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. The Baltic states of Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia are all opening borders and creating travel bubbles. There is a green line that has been opened between China and Singapore for protocols, and therefore travel has started between them. Vietnam, the success story of Southeast Asia in the battle for coronavirus, is now looking to reopen international travel. German trade fairs could be reopening very soon, etc. The Mexican hotspot of La Cabos will be opening soon. And can you believe it, that the biggest hit city of the planet, New York, is now thinking of reopening tourism and coordinating for it for the next 2 to 3 weeks. So all of it is not bad. Do remember, my friends, and message to all of you, that we don't need a vaccine to fight corona. We can if we change our habits. Remember that crisis has 2 meanings. One is opportunity and the other is change. It's made up of 2 words. So here, as Puneet also rightly said, there's a great opportunity for us to create what I said, that new day. My friends, stay home today to travel tomorrow. I promise you, we all have the confidence that India will become more incredible than ever before. Jai Hind.
Over to you.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Amrish. Thank you, Ashwin. Thank you, Madhu.
1 minute.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for such a insightful and such a stimulating session, so brilliantly moderated. And with this, sir, may I thank you and our esteemed panel with the office bearers, Mr. Amresh Tiwari, Mr. Girish Quatra, and Mr. Anuj Wadhwa, to present our certificates of appreciation for such a lovely session, which I think would have answered a lot of questions. And one little request, sir, I feel there are a few questions that we could not take up due to paucity of time. If I could have them sent over, could they please be answered on mail with our panelists responding to some of those questions?
Most certainly, if the esteemed panel has no objections to it, Ashwin, Puneet,
sure.
Suman.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you very much, sir. And Amresh ji and Girish ji, Anuj, can you please do the honors presenting to our moderator, Mr. Anand, certificate of appreciation. Abhishek, can you please present the certificate on screen, which we will send by mail by tomorrow.
Thank you. We are honored and
Thank you, Mr. Anand. This is a small token of our appreciation as a Guru Dakshina. Thank you.
We appreciate this, Amish. No, Guru Dakshina, we appreciate this. We learn every day. We learn every day, And great to catch up with friends. Puneet, of course, together in the industry. Ashwin, I've had the opportunity to have known of him, to have really got to interact with him for the first time. Suman, who doesn't know, and one of the closest friends that we've always had, and the number of late evenings I've spent with him, given him calls, said, how can we do this? How can we do that? He's always responded within 5 to 10 minutes. And I think one of the greatest friends that Tourism India can ever have. Suman, and thank you. And testimony for that fact is that you're here with us again today.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You are watching Travel World Online.